Hello everyone, I'm George Matthew. I am the Academic Director of Brooklyn Review. Today, I'm going to give you an overview of the GRE examination. So, the first question that I'm going to address is what does GRE stand for? GRE stands for Graduate Record Examination. Alright, so GRE stands for Graduate Record Examination. But a more important question is what exactly is GRE? GRE is a standardized test developed by Educational Testing Service, otherwise known as ETS. ETS is one of the largest educational organizations in the United States, and it is a not-for-profit organization. ETS has been developing, proctoring, and administering GRE for the past 70 years. Right? You heard it right. GRE is a very old test. However, many students in India do not have any idea about the GRE examination. Through this talk, my objective is to provide an overview, a sneak peek into the GRE examination. Right. So as I told you, GRE is a standardized test developed by ETS. So what exactly is a standardized test? Why do people or experts call it a standardized test? In fact, there are two reasons. You know that the people, those who are going for higher studies in the US, to their schools, colleges, and their universities, they hail from a myriad of backgrounds, a plethora of backgrounds, and they all come from academic percentages and records that are not always comparable because different schools and universities use different standards and parameters. And people from such myriad of backgrounds come together and apply. It is very difficult for the admission council or panel to decide which applicant is the most deserving one. So they need to have a common standard, therefore, to measure all the students. So put them all through the same examinations so that the most deserving candidate will get the admission. So in that sense, GRE functions as a standard. It functions as the benchmark. It actually levels the playing field. That's why GRE is called a standardized test. So that is the first reason as to why GRE is called a standardized test. Another reason as to why GRE is called a standardized test is very simple. As I told you, GRE has been around for the past 70 years. And it is not an easy task. In fact, it is a Herculean task to maintain the standards over these years. And GRE or ETS has actually been doing it quite successfully over these years. So they maintain the standards year on year, day to day, and they've been doing it for a long period of time. So therefore, it can be called a standardized test. Now, as I told you, GRE is developed by ETS and GRE is also a standardized test. The next important point is, why should one take GRE? So what is the objective? What is the purpose? Or why should I take GRE? So if you are planning to get into an American school or a college or a university for higher studies, you should take GRE. And predominantly for what programs? Mostly for graduate level programs, postgraduate level programs. So we call them MS. So if you are planning to get into an American college for MS, you should take GRE. And for also, if you're planning to get into an American B school for MBA programs, you should take the GRE examination. And if you're planning to do your doctoral research, your PhD, then you should be taking a GRE examination. So the MBA programs previously accepted GMAT. But from 2011 onwards, most of the B schools also started accepting GRE as a prerequisite along with GMAT. So GRE is also an eligibility criteria along with GMAT for B schools. Right, so the latest entrant into this group is a JD program. What is JD? JD stands for Juris Doctor. And if you are planning to practice, or if you're harboring any ambitions to practice as a lawyer in an American court, so you will have to get a license from the American Bar Council. Otherwise, it will not be possible for you to practice as an attorney in the United States. And for that, you need a Juris Doctor degree or a JD degree. Previously, in order to get into a JD program or Juris Doctor program, that you had to take LSAT, otherwise known as Law School Admission Test. Nowadays, along with LSAT examination, you can also take GRE as a standardized test to get into law schools for pursuing your Juris Doctor program. So as I told you, GRE is an eligibility criteria for entering into MS programs, PhD programs, MBA programs, and JD programs. So that's the reason predominantly people take GRE examinations. Since GRE is also a yardstick for measuring your analytical skills, your verbal reasoning skills, and your quantitative reasoning skills, people also take it for enhancing their career opportunities. Many American organizations and many organizations outside the United States accept GRE as a standard, as a benchmark for academic excellence. So therefore, when they consider promotions and giving more responsibilities to their professionals, their employees, they consider GRE as a standard. So it is just an additional qualification, not a mandatory one though. Now, so we've talked about GRE as a standardized test, and why do we take, or why should we take the GRE examination? Now I am going to go ahead and talk about exactly what are the components that we have in the GRE examination. So GRE examination predominantly has three components. The first component is known as Analytical Writing Assessment. Some people call it AWA, some people call it AWA. So it consists of two essays. One essay is called Analysis of an Issue. The other one is known as Analysis of an Argument. Then we have the next section, that is known as the Verbal Reasoning section. And what exactly is verbal reasoning section? It is the combination of your linguistic skills, means your understanding of the English language. So, and when I say linguistic skills, I'm not considering any other language at this juncture. As far as GRE is concerned, English is the standard language. So your English skills plus your reasoning skills, that's why it's called verbal reasoning rather than being called English. And then, so we have the Analytical Writing Assessment, or AWA or AWA, which is two different essays. And then we have the verbal reasoning, which is a combination of your English linguistic skills plus your reasoning skills. And the third component is called quantitative reasoning skills. So what is quantitative reasoning? So it is actually a combination of your math skills as well as your reasoning skills. Your math skills as well as your reasoning skills. So three things, two essays, English and reasoning, math and reasoning. In short, I can say GRE is an examination where you have to write two different essays and then do some English and do some maths. But that's a very simplistic, rather simplistic view of GRE examination. It's not that simple. But I'm not terrorizing you by saying that it's a hard nut to crack. So we have actually understood that GRE examination has got three major components. Now let us try to understand the test structure. So I'm going to elaborate on the components and we are going to try and understand how does this test pan out. So when you start the GR examination, the first thing that you're going to get is 2 essays, as I told you. So that essay writing will be for an hour. Means the analytical writing assessment, analysis of an issue essay for 30 minutes, and the analytical writing assessment argument essay is also for 30 minutes. Alright. So that is the first two things. Means when you start the GR examination, the first 1 hour you will be writing 2 essays for half an hour each. Means 1 hour you will be writing essays. What is the next thing that we are going to have? So it is quite unpredictable. No one can say what's going to come next, because it is actually a part of the GRE test structure that it is not possible for us to predict beforehand. Which means after the hour section, you may get a verbal reasoning section or a quantitative reasoning section. Now, let's imagine that you get a verbal reasoning section, because I'm a verbal trainer. So therefore, I'm slightly partial to the verbal reasoning section. I'm hoping and assuming that immediately after our section that you would get a verbal reasoning section. So in the verbal reasoning, what are the things that you're going to have? You're going to have 3 question types in the verbal reasoning section. That is called sentence equivalence, text completion, and reading comprehension. And in this section, overall, you're going to have 20 questions, and you will be provided with 30 minutes to answer those 20 questions. Right. So, and then after the verbal reasoning section, you're going to get a quantitative reasoning section. And what do we have in the quantitative reasoning section? So we are going to have 4 major question types. And what are they? The first one is called quantitative comparison. Yes, then you have multiple choice questions with 1 answers, multiple choice questions with multiple answers, and then numeric entry. So these are the question types. That means this is how the problems are actually going to be presented to you. But what are the subjects or areas of math that you should have some understanding of before actually getting into the GRE examination, right? So the first thing that you are going to understand, or you should have an understanding of number systems, number theories. Then you should have proper understanding of percentages. Then you'll have some understanding, or you should have some understanding of statistics. Then of course you should have understanding of probability, permutations, and combinations. And certainly you should also have understanding of geometry and all different facets of geometry. And then certainly you should also have some understanding of progressions, functions, and data interpretation. Also, there'll be questions on algebra, and finally you'll have a mixture of all, basically word problems, predominantly work and time related problems. So that's what in short that you're going to have in quantitative reasoning. As I told you, when you start the examination, that you're going to have verbal reasoning section, quantitative reasoning section, and also at the beginning, very beginning, you have the hour section. So the verbal reasoning section can be the first section after hour, or quantitative reasoning section can be the first section after hour. So let us imagine verbal reasoning comes first. Let us call it verbal reasoning section 1. And then after that you're going to get quantitative reasoning section 1. Then you will again get one more verbal reasoning section, and then it will be followed by a quantitative reasoning section. So you got verbal reasoning 1, quantitative reasoning 1, verbal reasoning 2, and quantitative reasoning 2. So then again there will be one more section which could be either a verbal section or a quant section. And as I told you, I'm a verbal trainer, therefore I presume that the additional section that you're going to get is going to be a verbal. It can be a verbal or quant, but I'm assuming that in this particular case it's going to be verbal reasoning section. So you got verbal 1, quant 1, verbal 2, quant 2, verbal 3. So you've got 3 verbal reasoning sections and 2 quantitative reasoning sections. Right. Now, let us say, out of this, you've got 5 verbal and quant sections overall altogether, out of which 2 verbal reasoning sections and 2 quantitative reasoning sections will be considered for scoring. But we already know that there are 3 verbal reasoning sections. But out of these 3, only 2 will be considered for scoring. Which 2? Nobody knows. It could be the first verbal and the third verbal. It could be the second verbal and the third verbal. Or it could be the first verbal and the second verbal. So any combination or permutation is possible. So that's about the GR examination. So the structure. So and then obviously there is something called a research section, which you can obviously skip. Normally a research section comes at the end of the examination and you have the liberty to skip the research section, and you will be quite tired by the time that you reach the research section. So I presume that you would all skip it, and I even recommend that you do that. Right. So and then obviously these are the sections, and this is how the test is going to be unraveling. So one more important point about the GR examination is that the GR scores. So how do we have the GR scores reported? The GR scores are basically 3 scores. Obviously, you have the AVA score, which is reported separately, and the AVA score is on a scale of 0 to 6. In fact, there will be 2 evaluators who will be evaluating the analysis of an issue essay, and they will be scoring you on a scale of 0 to 6 with 0.5 increments. When I say 0.5 increments, 0.5, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5 and 6. Right, so 2 evaluators will be evaluating the analysis of an issue essay, and 2 evaluators will be evaluating analysis of an argument essay. So basically you will have 4 scores, and these 4 scores will be added up and will be divided by 4, means they are going to calculate the average AVA score, and that will be reported on a scale of 0 to 6 again, and that's what your AVA score is. Your consolidated GRE score consists of your verbal reasoning score as well as your quantitative reasoning score. So your verbal reasoning score, as I told you, is going to be separated, and the quantitative reasoning score will be separated, but then they will also be a part of the consolidated GRE score. So the consolidated GRE score is measured on a scale of 340, and it starts from 260. So it's a range